Broadcasting from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, to around the globe. You're listening to Shark Bite Biz, your exclusive place for business strategy, sales, marketing, and tech in the roaring 20s. And now, here's your host, David Strausser.
Welcome to another edition of Shark Bite Biz. Once again, I'm your host, David Strausser, and this is the place to learn how to grow a business during a global pandemic. Before I start chatting about today's episode, I don't know if you can really see it because of the graphics, but have you noticed this shirt? Look at that. Have you noticed the coffee mug right here? Okay, beautiful. In case you're not getting the hint, Shark Bite Biz now has its own merch store on Teespring. The link will be in the description below. Support the channel, people. Buy a shirt, a mug, whatever you want. Heck, we even got doggy sweaters, okay? There's something for everybody at the Shark Bite Biz Teespring store. Check it out. All your purchases directly help this channel stay alive and get better. Now, let's get back to what we have planned for y'all today. We have a great show with some awesome financial info. In fact, that's actually a theme for this whole week. Both episodes are going to be about money, just in different ways. You know, money is tight for most people today, unless you're Jeff Bezos, right? And that doesn't just have to do with business finance either. You know, your company may be struggling, but what about personal finance? You have a lot of people unemployed. You have a lot of people reduce salary, hours, whatever it may be. Everybody's kind of feeling that financial crunch. So I really wanted to make sure that we hit this financial topic really hard this week. So who are we going to have today? Well, that's easy, I know. It's Danny Lee. Danny Lee has spent the better part of the last decade working with small businesses around important financial decisions. As a financial advisor with Eagle Strategies, he brings a team of legal and tax experts in advising clients and navigating complex challenges in today's ever-changing environment. So without further ado, let's bring in Danny, the Money Man Lee, in here.
Business strategy.
Welcome, Danny, to Shark Bite Biz. So glad to have you here with us, man. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. It's great to be here.
Oh, no problem. I don't know if you've watched the show yet or not, but we have a tradition here. Very first question is always, tell us who the heck you are. What's your experience? What's your background? Why should people listen to you?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Dave. I spent the better part of the last decade working with, highly compensated executives, closely held family-owned businesses on really an important financial planning decisions that they have. A lot of times in my industry, people who are financial advisors, right? They get shoehorned into this one thing. Oh, you sell investments or you sell products or whatever the case may be. But at a core, a good advisor actually helps figure out the right decisions around those important financial topics. And then if there's investments or insurance products, whatever the case may be, that ends up being the tool at the end of the conversation once the direction is decided. So
right.
Spend a lot of time doing that, helping people just really make better decisions around what to do with their business finances and their personal finances.
And that's one of the things I think that kind of separates you and why we get together so much, why we get along so good is because you're not like one of those random financial advisors that keep sending me messages on LinkedIn just trying to help me grow as an individual. You specialize in small business financial people. So you help them with the business as well as with their individual personal lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The reality is, what was it last check was like 80% of corporations in the US are small businesses or something around there. And really small business and what we consider closely held business is really the backbone of, America in terms of, the engine that drives the economy forward is regular people. These aren't like large corporations, like billionaires, like, Apple or Google or Amazon. It's the mom and pop shops. It's your local taqueria. It's your, little grocery store on the corner, right? So these small businesses, or your local plumber, electrician, these are the guys that really kind of, the oil that makes the whole machine work. And with small businesses, they can't afford, or they don't have the luxury of having maybe like a dedicated CFP or CFO in their organization, but they are faced with the same challenges of navigating the tax code, the greater financial markets, debt, right? Like credit, how to get credit.
Oh yeah.
In various economic situations, how to manage liquidity, how to manage cost, their profit and loss, right? And we help them. We help small business owners because at the end of the day, they're just as hardworking as someone working for a large corporation and a 9-to-5, but they have a lot more options, and by relation, a lot more challenges to overcome in order to have a successful long-term financial situation.
Now, you say that you help them, but explain, because I think there's some people out there that maybe they don't fully understand the advantages of having a financial advisor with their business or in their personal lives. How do you help them?
Well, great question. This is what I kind of like to tell prospective clients and individuals who are considering hiring us or employing our services. And I like to tell them this: everything that we do, everything that we will go over in the process of working with a client, everything that we will educate them with, is all public knowledge. Nothing is, there's no trade secret, other than kind of how we put it together, of course. But there's nothing that's secrets. There's no secret product or secret rules or tax loopholes that aren't already public information. Everything's available on Google. But then again, so is everything that your doctor, your attorney can do for you, right? The tax code, every law in the book of the land is public knowledge. But the problem is, how do you put that in context of your own situation, and how do you make decisions based on the pieces that apply to you without going out and getting a law degree, without going out and getting a financial degree and then 20 years of experience.
Like what you're saying right here to me, and I'm a techie, so what I hear is that you're taking all the raw data and basically computing it into essentially business intelligence, which is what somebody like you is, that's going to help them understand everything to kind of break through all the bottlenecks they're having.
Absolutely. We translate all that financial mumble jumble into regular, ordinary English.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So speaking about that, then, right now, a lot of people have been hit extremely hard. We're in the middle of a global pandemic that will not go away, and it is hitting both mom and pop businesses, small businesses, as well as individuals very, very, very hard. What kind of trends are you seeing right now in the market?
It really depends. And I only say that simply because, at the beginning of this, of course, nothing like this has ever happened. And at the beginning of this, we actually thought that our business, like many others, would be significantly impacted. Of course, we had some serious market volatility. And as of close of market yesterday, the S&P 500 hit another record, right? So all of the dip...
Apple the day that we're recording this interview, Apple just became a $2 trillion company, which is the first $2 trillion company anywhere.
Yeah, it took them a little over, took them, 30 years to get to $1 trillion, and then a little over 2 years to get to double that again. So it's a crazy time in the market. And of course, we have election years, and regardless of what your party leanings and politics are, it's going to be a rocky time in the economy. There's lots of
because it's volatile with the election. I mean, you look back even 2016 or 2008, I don't think it changed too much like when a president is reelected, like Obama 2012, because he was already president. So I don't think that really changes the market as much as when you get a new president coming in because of the uncertainty of the politics and possible regulations that administration could bring. Is that true at all?
It's true for the most part. Unfortunately, what has been true in this year, you can throw that out the window.
COVID, 2020, it is gone.
Yeah, 2020 is gone. Exactly, and no other time. Really, probably, certainly in my lifetime, and probably in the lifetime of most people alive today, have we ever seen a general interest rate as low as it has. No other time have we been faced with a pandemic that has effectively shut down not the economies of one country or one local region, but really kind of had the global economy grind to a halt for, depending where you are, a couple of months. To in some cases still going on.
I want to dig into that just for 1 second, because people, I think they don't really think about how global the economy is right now. Many years, for example, I lived in Tijuana, Mexico. I was working with the Mexican government for a few years. I was very active with all the manufacturers, distributors. People, I don't think they really understand how interconnected all these economies are. So China, for example, they're going to have issues even if they don't have the virus out there at all. They'll have issues just because the American economy is almost shut down because they're not getting the purchases, the orders, the innovation type stuff that really helps their economy thrive, and that kind of spreads on like that, kind of like a tree with branches growing throughout the economy. It's a trickle down effect to where it does affect every single country, right?
Yeah, I mean it's if you're a fan of sci-fi or fantasy, it's the butterfly effect, right? So a flap of a butterfly wings can cause a tsunami across the world, and that analogy has never been more true than with the global economy in 2020. It's a scary place to be. That being said, though, as I said before, it depends, because on one side, there are businesses that have been significantly impacted, but we've also seen other businesses, our clients, some of our clients who have actually experienced improvements, increases in their business versus same time last year, and that's
amazing. That is the heart and soul what this podcast is about. Because just because the government says that we have to close or whatever it is, there are still a lot of business owners out there that are using this time to retool their business or finding other ways to grow their business. And even with this global pandemic, they're still experiencing growth. And that's why I started the show, to get these stories out.
That's right. We've had clients who've experienced incremental improvements and incremental growth to the clients that are seeing double and triple digit growth on parts of their business that really has been steady for many, many years, that are effectively mature, and that now that they're seeing, new opportunities arise. And I think that's for me, that's kind of the lesson to draw from this. At the end of the day, throughout this, two things will happen when this, COVID, plus economic slowdown and shutdown blows over. Two things will happen. Either you are relieved that it's over and are ready to get back to whatever you thought your normal was, or you're coming out of this kick-in because you've spent that time retooling, rejigging, and evaluating your situation so that you are prepared and set up and hit the ground running, or if you haven't already done so.
What industries have you seen that have achieved some of the biggest growths?
We've had ones. Certainly, we've had a couple of clients in the online retail space.
In fact, with Vision 33, where I work for my main job, I've told this story a number of times on here, but it's true every single time I tell it. We'll get people that they're realistically 2, 3, maybe even up to 4 years away before needing a true ERP system. Mm-hmm. But because of what happened in this global pandemic, they shifted their priorities. Okay, we're not doing events or we're not doing retail. We're just doing everything online now. Let's focus on that. They retooled some stuff. And all of a sudden, instead of 100 orders a week online that they were getting, now they're getting like 2,000 orders a week. And it has overwhelmed them. And those companies that would have been 2, 3 years away from getting a new system are actually calling us now. I am getting more calls for companies that I'm talking small. They're like 3, 4, 5 users, 6, usually a lot under 10. I'm getting more calls for businesses like that at this time than I have at any other time period in the last 5 years. Yeah. It's crazy.
I'm great that I'm happy that you brought that up. I have a great example of that. So, we obviously know that the restaurant and hospitality industries are the hardest hit, one of the hardest hit during this shutdown. I love the area that I live in, the San Gabriel Valley, which you probably know is effectively a food mecca, right?
Oh yeah, I live in
California, right? You have everything. You have everything from anywhere around in the world, particularly from the Latin countries and the Asian countries, right? So
I got to talk about this. I'm a foodie. I love food. And this is my biggest complaint about living. I'm in Philadelphia now. I got promoted from the sales rep to run the Northeast for Vision 33. And my biggest complaint is when I was living out there in LA, in Azusa specifically, even in Azusa, which is, like a very northeastern corner of LA County, right. I could throw a dart at a globe, no matter what country it landed on. Within a 20-minute drive, I could find a top quality restaurant of that food for my house.
That's right.
Out here in Philly, I can't do it. I mean, there's great food out here, but it's going to be mostly Italian and stuff like that. I love that, but I eat low carb, so it doesn't balance well with me.
You're very limited in Italian choices there. Philly cheesesteak without the sandwich, you can't really do that.
Yeah. Put it in a lettuce wrap, right?
So that's blasphemous.
Whenever I hear the food, that's a very passionate subject of mine that I like to talk about because I love food so much, and I miss it out there in SoCal because it's amazing. That is the one thing that is hard to replace, I think, from LA.
That's right. Absolutely. And so kind of along my example, we've had, record closures of large restaurants, particularly ones that are more formal, kind of upscale dining. But then on the other hand, in my local mom and pop shops, I keep, of course, when it first hit, they're like, oh, it's slow. People are afraid. People aren't really coming out. And then it was like, well, we're kind of afraid, like it's steady, but we actually don't want any more because then we don't want crowded, crowds of people, even when they're waiting for pickup. And to now, some of the restaurants, they're operating lean. They don't have a large staff, but they're like, every single time I go for a pickup, they got like 5 or 6 orders sitting there waiting. They got like section for a Grubhub. They got a section for if you phoned in your order. And so they've retooled, revamped their model, and they're chugging along. Getting very strong. And some of them have even said our business is actually better than ever. We just, visited one restaurant that's really opened like 2 months before, the shutdown. It's the worst possible time to open a restaurant. But they're like, we've broken even. We haven't been in traditionally small restaurant. It's very common to see them not even break even for a year or two. So it's amazing. I've heard that. It's an interesting time for all types of businesses. So I think the imperative is, how if you are a essential If you produce a good or provide a service that is valuable, okay, I'm not talking about, it doesn't matter if you're selling home goods. It doesn't matter, right? Like if you are producing something or providing a service that is valuable to people, period, right? That are essential to the average daily life of helping, providing value and helping people better their lives, you will, and you find your niche and get the word out, right? The marketing might be very different, right? Like take the original marketing script and throw it out the window as well, because you got to rewrite that, right? If you're not used to online presence, you better get with it. If you're a professional professional service provider like myself, and you're not used to doing Zoom meetings, right, or team meetings, get with it. That's probably one of the only ways to meet clients.
Digital transformation is the buzzword today. That's what we talk about a lot on this show, because a lot of people have had to have that transformation, whether they were ready for it or not. Yeah. But the only way you're going to succeed now is by embracing technology. And maybe you're not the most technological savvy person. Mm-hmm. That's fine. Yeah. Just surround yourself with people that are, and you should be okay.
That's right. And really on that note as well, I would say some of the back to basics of mm-hmm. business management 101, right? Liquidity, right. Cash positions, access to credit. Those things have been never, those things, cost controls, those things have never
access to credit. Mm-hmm. Are banks clamping down with the access to credit?
Depends. Yes and no, because, banks in recent months, of course, have been overwhelmed with processing the PPP loans for businesses. And that's largely over.
COVID waiver request, all that stuff.
Right. And that's largely over with, at least, the application process side of the PPP. Most of the money, has been dispersed. And I would say that the businesses who received the money, because they had to actually use 75% of it at least on payroll, some of it's starting to run out, if not already. So,
So I did have a question about that. Mm-hmm. What if you had a business that was affected by the global pandemic, for shutdowns, quarantines, whatever? You got a PPP loan that was, 75% was supposed to help you towards payroll, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I get that. Now you're in a state where things are starting to open back up. What do you do if you don't have the cash to be able to ramp back up?
That's $1 million question.
Are you hearing that at all from any people you're working with? Like they're worried about that aspect of it?
Absolutely. That would be the problem that, needs to be solved, because it's a question of survival. Right? Whether it's means making sacrifices in terms of cutting back, whether it's renegotiating or negotiating some sort of leniency with your landlord. Right? A lot of businesses lease very expensive space. All of that has it's not like there's no like, here, do this and you'll be okay. It's literally do everything you can so that you are able to. And I wish there was a better answer to address that. But for most businesses, it's literally about how are you going to move forward? And that's part of that rejigging and retooling and restructuring your business, and what your business look like moving forward now, not like when things potentially get back to, quote unquote normal in 12, 18, 24 months. It's how will you move forward next month?
Right. And I think that is going to be a struggle. And I don't hear any of our politicians, again, this is apolitical. It doesn't matter what side they're on. I don't hear anybody talking about that. And I think that if a business, maybe it's only running at 25% capacity, stuff like that right now, couple months, eventually they're going to be able to get back up to 100% capacity of whatever they do. Mm-hmm. And they're going to need capital to get supplies, whether it's food or whether it's more stock items or whatever that they need to buy to resell. And I think that's a struggle that more people need to be talking about right now.
I agree. It needs to be talked about. It needs, and I hope that whatever happens, on Capitol Hill, will effectively trickle down to, small business owners. But on the ground, what I see the reality is, if nothing's done in the specific business, if nothing, and unfortunately, some of these businesses have had to close, right? Like retooling and restructuring wasn't possible unless they literally hit the reset button. And that's what small business has to deal with. Most small businesses don't have more than a couple of months worth of liquidity in terms of, keeping the lights on. And that's just a reality of small business. You just don't have that much cash on hand.
That's what you're able to help with.
Well, yeah.
Teaching them how to be prepared. I mean, the global pandemic, it is hard to prepare for something of this nature. I will admit, but in general, I mean, having somebody like you will help them at least be better prepared if something like this were ever to happen again.
That's right.
One area. So I don't know if you do or don't, but you brought up just a second ago about landlords. Mm-hmm. Do you work with any landlords that are small businesses?
So like individuals who have commercial property? Is that
individuals that own properties. How hard hit have they been because you have the eviction moratoriums? They can't kick people out if they don't have the money. I mean, they're kind of stuck if they still have mortgages and everything, I think.
Yeah.
How hard has that been hit?
Hard, and to varying degrees, depending on how well they're prepared. And so when we do kind of comprehensive planning, even whether it's a client that's worth $1 million or a client that's worth $10 million or $100 million, liquidity is one of those really key concerns. And particularly, as you mentioned, with landlords, people with significant real estate holdings, especially here in Southern California, right? Real estate is like this huge, hot topic. You're like, if you're in Southern California and you've experienced some success and you have some investable assets, most people, like 9 out of 10 people are like, I got to have some in real estate. I don't care if it's like some duplex out in the middle of nowhere that's, that I'm renting out. I got to have some real estate. And that's kind of
I had a lot of friends. My one buddy was telling me that about 20 years ago, he bought a house. I think it was in Carlsbad down in San Diego County. He bought it for $500,000-$600,000. Now that same house, and it's not even in a richy neighborhood, it's worth well over $1 million. Yeah. And that's insane to me. That's a good investment.
Yeah. Exactly. Assuming you can kind of keep up the mortgage. And the benefit of the real estate is you don't have to plunk down $500,000. You don't have to plunk down 100% of the purchase price, right? You could put down 3%, 5%, 20%, and commercial properties probably closer to 50%, and then leverage and use other people's money to purchase that asset, but you get to keep the appreciation, right? So, the flip side to that is if you don't have enough liquidity, right? Like if you, I always love to say, real estate's wonderful. Everybody should have some, but you can't spend real estate.
Right. Understood. So we do got to start getting wrapped up. I have probably 2 final questions for you. Sure. One on the personal side, one on the business side. Sure. Personal side, okay, you mentioned about Capitol Hill. One of the things that Capitol Hill did do was they passed the CARES Act.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Part of the CARES Act was kind of cool. I think it was a lifesaver for many people. It allowed them to take up to 100% of their 401k, I think up to 100K or somewhere around there. Is that a wise move or is that a bad?
It depends. Right? It's great that they gave people another option. Okay. So traditionally, from any sort of retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, 403bs, 450, they're all the same kind of pre-tax, retirement accounts, qualified retirement accounts, we would call them. Before the age 59 and a half, if you take any withdrawals, with the exception of a few significant healthcare costs or your first home, with a few exceptions, you'll be hit with a 10% penalty and then the income taxes. Okay, because most of those plans are funded with pre-tax dollars. That being said, the CARES Act allowed for what's called a coronavirus withdrawal, right?
Right.
If you've experienced financial hardship, and it's kind of vague. The language is there, like, and it seems like they've left the discretion of checking whether, the burden of proof to the individual plan administrator. But besides the point, right? So
I have mine with Vision 33. We have our 401k with Transamerica, and I had called them up, inquired about it just for the show, figure out how it works. And basically, it is up to the employer, the manager of the plan, to actually opt into that. And then if they opt in, it really depends on the employer, how strict they're going to be. If they're going to require you to have, be positive for the virus, or just affected by the virus,
right? Or have a family member, or whatever the case may be. Right. It's really, really vague, right? And Congress, I mean, in their kind of haste to get this out, didn't really specify. And that's good and bad in some situations. On one hand, it's like, if I really need it, okay, fine. I may not have to jump through a bunch of hurdles, but then if I do need it, am I following all the rules? I don't know, right? So the point is, it's vague, but the point is the option is available there. So up to $100,000, and that $100,000.
When would you recommend? Say someone, they're a manager at some kind of business that was shut down. They got either furloughed, laid off. Their, unemployment, maybe it didn't even cover their mortgage payment. Who knows? And they're about to either lose their house or default on a lot of, I guess no one's losing their house now, but they're getting behind the mortgage payments or whatever it is. I mean, in those types of situations where it may get extreme, dangerous, would you recommend that? Or
that is definitely an option. As far as recommending, right, they definitely need to seek professional help, right? Visit with their tax professional, visit with their financial professional if they have one. If not, find one. That is educated
or
enough.
Reach out to you, right?
Of course, reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer some simple questions, and to figure out what their situation is, because it's not as simple as, oh, I've got $100,000, let's go. Because some of those businesses that I mentioned that I know of that are doing well, they're doing well, and they specifically understand and know that their business was positively impacted by the stimulus checks. Said another way,
right,
as soon as people got those stimulus checks, whether they needed it for kind of essentials or whatnot, I'm sure people did do that. But there's a swath of the population who may or may not have needed it like right then. We're like, that's awesome, I've got an extra $1,200 to go spend on something.
There's also buy. See, this is the one thing that upset me with what our lovely Congress had done, is I think there's a lot of people that are maybe middle class, upper middle class. Think about a family, maybe one spouse earns 130, 140, 150,000. Maybe the other spouse only earns 50, 60,000. But because of where they're at, even with 2-3 kids, they essentially got zero. And because of everything that's going on, perhaps one of them got either laid off, or in many cases, a lot of bonuses got suspended, commissions got suspended, salaries may have been temporarily reduced. And all those people, they didn't get essentially any help from anybody. They got nothing. And they are struggling financially just because of that as well, too. I mean, that's a true scenario out there, right? I'm not just thinking it's weird.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I would say a lot of our, you've lived in Southern California before, right? And it's an expensive area to live. Most of our young professionals are with young families. I mean, in order to afford a home out here and then to raise a family in that home, with 1 or 2 kids, with the cost of childcare, and especially if both parents are working, you're easily into several $100,000 to be really in the middle class out here, and it's a challenge. And I know families,
I've been there.
Yeah, I know families who get by on less, but it's a challenge all around because of the cost of living, and most of these families are effectively phased out of that support. as well. So
it's sad.
Yeah,
It-
it's a challenge
it's
all
sad.
around. But look, all these things are kind of short term, and they're band-aids to kind of this never seen before pandemic and subsequent economic shutdown situation. So it kind of brings me back to the fact that now more than ever, not just the business owner, not just the established people who are kind of upper middle class or mass affluent individuals that have financial options, right? The luxury of financial options. More than ever, even the average individual needs to kind of go back to the basic drawing board of being, kind of looking at their situation, looking at living within their means, saving what you can, whether, and whatever plan that is, whether you determine to save, 10, 15, 20%, whatever you can, and stick to it. Maintain emergency funds, right? We've always told our clients for, last 10 years, probably thousands of people, not all of them are my clients, but, that I've met with. And the rule of thumb is, have 3 to 6 months of all of your living expenses at any time. This isn't part of the vacation money. This isn't part of the Christmas money. Yeah, I'll put it back in January, right? This is literally, if nothing bad or catastrophic happens, I do not touch that money, and to have the discipline to do so. So maintaining proper liquidity and really having a written plan, whether you're working with a professional or not. Just like starting a business, if you don't have a written plan, if you don't have something that's both measurable and attainable at the same time, it's pretty much bound to not happen, right? There was that, the study that everyone cites, the Harvard Business School study, where they surveyed, they followed, a class of graduates, and out of that entire class, 10 years later, I think 3 of them were multimillionaires, and it's because they all wrote down their business plans, or their goals, right? So, good stuff. Yeah, there's no magic bullet. There's no easy fix to the challenges people are dealing with now. But at least from my perspective, all of the things that we talk about, whether it's asset protection, right, income protection, just foundational financial planning 101, these principles, they're more important than ever to enact with every single individual, whether they're worried about, like, how am I going to get my job back and continue paying rent, to how am I going to keep my business going and pay my employees, or my 30 employees that have been with me for 5 years or 10 years, and how am I going to provide for them and my family?
Yeah. No, that's great advice there. And you were actually starting to tread into what my final question for you was. So real briefly, what final words of advice do you have for those same small business owners that you were just touching on a second ago that might be struggling, wondering, how do I do this? How do I do that? And finances, may be a problem for them. There's a lot of economic uncertainty, and this is kind of more of a philosophical answer, if you don't mind. I love philosophy here. Yeah, especially after a couple of drinks. My 17-year-old says, "Dad, you get too philosophical. Get away from me." So go ahead. I love it. Exactly. Let's hear it, Daddy.
Yeah. If you had something other than coffee in that mug, we may be here for a couple more hours, right?
Exactly.
So I would say this: there's a lot of economic uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty with what's coming through the tax laws, support from Congress, the investment markets, the credit markets, the low rates. There's a lot of what ifs and I hope so's out in the greater market. That being said, what I've found is that entrepreneurial people, right? So people that go out there, and crazy people that go out there and risk everything to start a new business, and for their and bet their entire livelihoods and that of their entire family's livelihoods on an idea, a dream, a goal, right? They are naturally people who are not risk adverse, right? They are naturally people who are willing to take some risk and are able to be okay with adversity and uncertainty. Uncertainty is a better word, right? They're okay with uncertainty. Mm-hmm. They can accept uncertainty. And within that environment, this is kind of, in recent memory, one of the most uncertain times ever. That being said,
definitely,
particularly with small business owners, and even with people who maybe are working a job, right? Maybe they're laid off, maybe their hours are reduced, maybe they're not really happy with what they're doing for a living.
Yeah.
Right. Not 100%. Like, okay, it pays the bills, but I wish I could do something else. This is a time to kind of reinvent yourself and to absolutely be able to figure out what it is that you really want to pursue, your passions, right? What you're good at, what you'll be willing to kind of.
That's amazing there. That's something that we've heard time and time again from various different experts or business owners, whether it's reinvent yourself as a person, your business, your job, or it's your brand, like take a step backwards and reinvent how you do things in your business to find a better way to do it.
Right. Exactly. And then from there, figure out, maybe find someone who's already there, who's already doing that, and see if you can learn from them, right? And if you're already in that space where you're already on the right track, you have the luxury and the fortune to already be exactly where you want to be. Figure out the things that you can control and only focus on that. And I'm not even talking about focus on that and then worry about the other stuff. Like literally put that out of your mind, right? Sometimes I tell clients that come to me with, check out the market. Of course I'm paying the market. What do I do about this? Or I heard this. I'm like, you know what? Just stop, right? Just literally turn off CNBC, right? Like literally take your, Yahoo Finance app and just delete it off your phone. Because
what about Robinhood? Should we delete that?
Robinhood is a great.
That's another.
Yeah, it's a great
another podcast episode.
It could be exactly. It's a great learning tool, but with great power comes great responsibility, right? And so without the right contact and education, you can get yourself in.
I've heard stories.
Yeah. So look, it's control the controllables on a daily basis and figure out and simplify your routines, right? What do I mean by that? For example, for me, I have a almost 4-year-old now, right? So he has his daily routines, and the time that if we go on vacation or he gets thrown off his schedule, it's game over. It's a challenge. And for those who have young children, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
End of the world.
Yeah, end of the world. So you have to have your routines and we have routines, not just so that we have organization, but we can maximize our energy and time, right? Because if you're passionate about something, even and
I think a lot of routines got thrown off here.
Exactly. Juggling.
So anyways, Danny, hey, I love you being philosophical. It is great. It's a pleasure to have you here. How can people reach out to you, Danny Lee, the Money Man?
You could reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. You can message me. You can email me. I don't know if you want to post my email in a description of this video. Feel free to reach out to me on that's the best way to reach me and my staff. And we'll definitely try our best to help out. That's really what we're here to do.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, Danny, thank you so much for coming on here. You gave so much insightful info. It's been amazing. It's been great. It's been fresh. And you're really reinforcing a lot of the stuff that we've heard in our previous episodes. So it's always good to hear that.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure. And I can go on for hours, but I appreciate you having me here. And everyone that's watching, let's plan for a long term, but hope for the best, and hopefully we get back to a new normal as soon as possible.
Oh yeah, definitely. And please, guys, I'll put the description out there. I'll put Danny's contact info on the descriptions of YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. Please make sure you reach out to him. Thank you again, Danny, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon, man.
All right, take care now.
Take care. Amazing story from Danny, the Money Man Lee. That dude is incredible. And this is also one of those really awesome conversations that I love to have because it just covers such a big, huge, large, vast array of different topics. That story about Danny's friend who opened a business right before the pandemic hit and now has essentially broke even because they were able to quickly adjust and shift their business model is awesome. That is a type of story that we want to get out to everybody. We want people to hear those success stories so that they could think, wow, I can do this too. The financial situation, though, it is tough. It's almost critical for a lot of businesses. PPP, essentially gone at this point. We are hoping for a new program for small businesses, but with the current political situation, realistically, it just looks slim. Like Danny said, there's a good thing, though, that the banks, they're not completely clamping down and shutting off lines of credit. Yeah, they're getting a little bit tighter, but they're still open to lending on the right basis. So there's still some options out there to help you ramp back up. One of the big keys, like Danny was saying, is liquidity and getting back to business management 101 to make it through the next few months. As Danny and I talked about, the biggest concern I hear coming up from most businesses is that we are surviving, but we need more money to be able to help ramp back up and move forward. That's where digitally transforming may be able to help your company run more lean, run more efficient, using, again, what I do with my day job, Vision 33 with ERP. There's solutions that you can get that are low cost, and it doesn't even have to be an ERP. I mean, there's CRMs. Maybe it's just something as simple as HubSpot, and that's pretty low cost, or Zoho. Whatever it is, one of those solutions, or something like me with SAP Business One, there are solutions out there that can help you operate much cheaper, much more efficiently, get the automation, the business processes all straight, automated, whatever you need. You can kind of get that with your business intelligence, and that can be a key to the recipe. But even with the best system that you can get, it's not the only ingredient. You're going to need to figure it out on a couple different levels. And it's tough. In fact, if you want to come on this show and talk about the struggles you're going through, I'd love to have you as a guest on here. Reach out to me, David at sharkbitebiz.com. What did you think about this episode, right? This was some great stuff. So let me ask you, what do you think is the biggest hurdle for businesses to be able to ramp back up when things do fully open? What can they do to have the cash flow to support that instant burst of growth they're going to see with needing stock items, needing employees, and all of that they're going to need, again, to get back up to full capacity? Discuss in the comments below. This should be a fun one to talk about. Do you love the show? If you love the show, help the show. There are 3 ways you can help us out, okay? Real simple. Number 1, subscribe. Smash that subscribe button and watch all our episodes when they come out every Monday and Thursday at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. Number 2, help people find the channel by sharing. Share the channel so that they can grow their businesses and you help this channel grow as well too. Number 3, buy some cool merchandise like the Shark Bite Biz t-shirt or the Shark Bite Biz coffee mug. You can get that from our brand smacking new Teespring store. The link is in the description below. It is teespring.com/shark-bite-biz. Go there, you can find it. Every purchase helps this channel meet its production costs so that we can keep coming out with some awesome episodes for you all. Once again, I am David Strausser. This is Shark Bite Biz, and I'll see you next episode.
Thank you for listening to Shark Bite Biz. We hope you got some insightful info from this podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us through your favorite podcast app and visit us on the web at www.sharkbitebiz.com. How has business changed for you in the 20s? Email us at podcast@sharkbitebiz.com so you can join us and share your story.